Hello, this is a very old YouTuber, Cult of Dusty. What I learned from cheating, divorce, and my cringy midlife crisis. Now, this guy in this video, which is probably a couple years old now, talked about how he got 250,000 subs, right? And now he's got 232. So he's on his way out. But anyway, this is about his midlife crisis. The problem with it is that it happened in his late 30s, which is a red flag. You know something's up. And what's up is that a midlife crisis is a man's awareness of his mortality. We reach an age that we see wrinkles in the face and we say, we're going to die. And we know we're going to die in our heart of hearts. We always knew it in our heads as younger people, but now we know it in our hearts. This happened to him in his late 30s. So he's too young to have that. Midlife crisis happens in our mid 40s at the earliest.
This month marks my 10-year anniversary on YouTube. Yay, we did it! I have no idea how many channels have managed to last 10 years on YouTube, but mine's one of them. And also, we just passed 250,000 subscribers, which I know ain't shit, but I never thought I'd get.
I disagree. Dusty, I think you've done really well for yourself. I would love to have 250,000 subs. This guy did really good for himself. I'm happy for him.
Get there. And I usually don't make personal videos, but so much crazy shit has happened in the last 10 years. Doing my show on YouTube has changed my life immensely over the last 10 years. It cost me.
Actually, it's not crazy at all. His experience is so banal. Nobody guy from Hicksville makes it big, blows all his money, and gets divorced by his wife. And now he's entering into has-been territory. I mean, this is a very typical story.
Cost me my marriage, cost me most of my family, sent me spiraling.
By the way, it cost him his family only because he became an atheist YouTuber from a Christian family. So he got excommunicated. Otherwise, he's done nothing to get rid of the family. It's the wife, of course, that's different.
Into a really cringy midlife crisis. So in this video, I thought I would share with you guys the behind the scenes.
No. This is not a midlife crisis. Again, this guy had options opened up to him. That's what happened. And then he enjoyed the options. And then when he lacked, the popularity lagged and went down, and he started becoming a has-been, all of a sudden those options were closed. And so he has no choice to be where he is now.
Stuff that happened over the last 10 years, talk about my ups and downs, my mistakes and regrets, my failures, and share with you guys the behind the scene look.
This guy only made one mistake. He didn't save any money. He didn't put any aside. That's his only error. That and a complete lack of self-awareness. But I mean, that happens to a lot of guys. Most guys don't know what's going on in the world. But in any event, if he had put money aside, this would just be a strange part of his life to him.
At 10 years of the Cult of Dusty. So the first few videos I did, I didn't show my face, I didn't use my voice, and I had some basic editing skills. And tell me they were fans. And then I started getting messages from women, like literally some of the most beautiful women I'd ever laid eyes on began messaging me and flirting with me. And I had never experienced anything like that before. And
of course, you gain status. Women are attracted to status. So as soon as you were nobody before, so they didn't want anything to do with you. Then you became somebody and they're all over you like flies to honey.
And that shit went to my fucking head, dudes. I began to think I was the fucking shit. I got cocky and arrogant, full of myself, and I behaved like a total asshole to my wife. I acted like a fucking cad. Cute local soccer moms were messaging me, asking me to have affairs with them and shit.
Okay, this is a good question I want to ask you, Dusty. Do these soccer moms have videos saying how they regret wanting to sleep around with high status men? No. And do you think you're the only male celeb they messaged? No. These women probably had multiple guys they would have liked to bang. These married women. And none of them have any regrets on that. So why should you?
And like up to that point, I had been married like 16 years. I had been faithful to my wife for 16 years. But like I said, that shit changed.
That's not faithful. You had no choice. You got married for 16 years because no other woman wanted you. And as soon as you had the options of better looking women, you went for it. So you were never loyal anyway, any more than she was to you.
Me, man. I became selfish and disloyal. And for a while, it was just flirting. It felt good to have these beautiful.
No, you didn't. You were always that way. It's just that you didn't have the options to do it, to voice them. And now you had a chance. And the only reason you're here now is because those options are gone.
Women want me. And after a while, I started becoming a selfish asshole and I just gave in to temptation. And this is not an excuse for my behavior.
How is giving into temptation an asshole? Anyone can give into temptation. Obviously, you wanted to bang good-looking women like most other men.
But just to explain, I'm a fucking dork, and I've always been a goddamn dork. Like growing up, I had a few girlfriends here and there, and I had sex a few times when I was a teenager. But to be honest, I was a chubby kid.
Yeah, that's the average teenage boy. Teenage boys are at the bottom of the barrel in status. Most teenage boys don't get girlfriends. So you're just one of the many.
Wasn't good with women. I didn't do well with women. And on top of that, I was a giant fucking Christian dork.
Well, of course, you were a low status guy. And probably, like you say, you were probably homely with it. And so they didn't want you. I mean, it's not like there's anything you could do about it. Other than now that you locked into status and then they wanted you.
Which didn't help any. So I basically only had one major girlfriend when I was a teenager. And I got married really young when I was 21. And
of course you did. You're like the vast majority of men. You are desperately hoping that marriage was going to supply you with regular sex and intimacy. Of course it didn't, did it? You got some occasional, which means you were just as better off just being single anyway.
And I was married for 17 years. So I never really sowed any wild oats. I think up to that point, I had only been with like...
Of course you didn't, because it's not up to you. You have to be attracted to the opposite sex. And most men aren't anyway. There was a poll on dating sites saying that where women said 80% of men were below average. It's an impossibility. But in other words, most men aren't good enough for women. So how would you be different? Why is it so strange that you're part of the 80%?
4 women in my life. I never really felt handsome or desirable. And then suddenly, when I'm pushing 40, all these young women start messaging me and showing interest. And it basically triggered...
Yeah, of course they did, because you gained popularity and wealth.
A full-on midlife crisis. I mean, fucking textbook.
No. This is not a midlife crisis. You had options that you didn't have before, so you went for it. A midlife crisis is about a man dealing with his mortality. He knows he's going to die. These women coming on to you was not you realizing that you were going to die someday. It was you saying, wow, there's all these hot women wanting me. It's time for me to go for it.
I went out and bought me a shiny red sports car shaped like a penis, and I began...
That's not a midlife crisis either. All kinds of young guys, if they had the wealth, would buy themselves a sports car. Men just like sports cars. It may be a part of a midlife crisis, but you weren't having a midlife crisis. You were actually a fairly young man still in your late 30s who had the wealth to buy a sports car, so you did.
And fucking around on my wife, which looking back was a really fucking shitty thing for me to do because...
Well, yeah, I suppose.
She was an amazing woman. She is an amazing woman. She was loyal to me the entire time we were married.
She divorced you, so she wasn't loyal.
She was a fucking awesome wife. And I let my...
Look, you made a lot of money during YouTube, didn't you? So she hung around for that. It's probably when your popularity and money started waning that she ditched you.
Ego get the best of me and I fucked that shit up. And she had way too much self-respect to take that shit. She didn't like the person I had turned into.
You were the same person as always. It's just that she probably looked at you and said, this man has options now. And so he's probably going to move on to a better looking woman with his wealth. And perhaps she just didn't have control of your money. And that she realized that was probably, if all their money was going into her, she probably would say, yeah, I'll stick around with this guy. There's all kinds of male politicians that sleep around on their wives and the wives stay with them. It's because they were there for his wealth and status, not him, just like you and your wife.
He didn't like the cult of Dusty. And unsurprisingly, she divorced the shit out of me. Which
go.
Obviously I don't blame her.
There's that loyalty you're talking about.
Her for it all. She went out and she found her somebody better, somebody that treats her the way she deserved to be treated. She found her a really...
Well, she found someone she knew she could, force loyalty out of, is what it is. She knows you didn't have to be loyal to her.
Nice guy who treats her well, and I'm really happy about that. I deeply regret the way I behaved because of my own selfishness.
Yeah, because now you're turning into a has-been. You don't have that woman around, and you don't have these other women messing with you anymore. So of course there's regret. Let's get to look how much you made. I think I want to see this.
I was young. Look at this. I got super fucking skinny. And back in the day, YouTube is not like it is now. You could actually make a lot of fucking money on YouTube. I think I cleared maybe $8,000 last year on YouTube. But back in the day before the adpocalypse, you could easily make $5,000, $6,000 per video. So I got in.
So there you go. There it is there. $5,000 or $6,000 a video. Now, I don't know how many you made every year, but if you just made one video a week and you were getting that much, that's $250,000 a year. You were a high, high-end money. Whereas now $8,000 a year, that just supplements regular jobs. It just makes the things a little easier. So that's what happened here. You were making all kinds of money, and probably when that, as you say, adpocalypse came around, you didn't have that money anymore. Your wife wasn't being kept in the lifestyle that she got accustomed to. And she saw you had options, so she ditched you.
In shape, and I bought me some fancy clothes, and I moved into the nicest building in all of Denver in a $2,000.
Okay, this is unimportant and boring.
Part, I was still that dorky, chubby Christian kid. I never really had any fucking game. The things I had to do to get...
Yes, you did. You gained wealth and notoriety. You gained status. That's all the game you needed. That's why the girls were messaging you.
Those women were never worth it. Never. I know for some guys it's easy. I guess some guys are taller or better looking or have...
No, it's never easy. Even high status guys have to jump through hoops. There isn't a guy who gets it 100% of the time, or even 75. Even high status men have to jump through hoops, and their luck is just that. It's occasional. It's luck.
A better game, and they don't have any problem with that shit. But for me, it just wasn't easy, and it wasn't worth it. I was fucking miserable. Looking back, I see now I was totally super...
It's all that's the same for every guy. Why do you think wealthy, high status men always gets married? Most guys get married, no matter how much money they make. Donald Trump has wives, right? That's because they all want this intimacy. They're desperate for this intimacy that doesn't exist with the opposite sex. And they don't want to have to jump through all these hoops all the time to get these girls, just like you. So they try and peg down to one woman and orbit around her.
Official. My main criteria for women was their looks. And looking back, I see that's just dumb as fuck, man. Now...
Well, geez, I mean, what else are you going to do? What are the qualities that you're looking for?
I understand that having your main criteria be somebody's looks only leads to misery. Yeah, looks are important. You have to be attracted to the person. but the number one main criteria you should look for in a mate is loyalty.
Yeah, and how would you filter for that? How would you, like, you don't know if someone's going to be loyal or disloyal until the situation comes up. Your wife divorced you. So, I mean, she was this great girl, right? She divorced you. So, I mean, she was disloyal. So you're not going to find out until you might not find out for decades. So you can't filter for it. You weren't loyal to her, right? So most people are not loyal by nature. So this is a stupid criteria for you to go by.
Which is exactly what I had and I threw away, but I didn't deserve it because I wasn't loyal myself. As I've said many times before, one good girl is worth a million bitches. And if you don't have...
Come on, dude. You only care about this now that you're waning and you can't make the money you used to and you don't have the options. This has nothing to do with loyalty.
Have loyalty, you ain't got shit. And honestly, dudes, I didn't like the person I had become. I became disgusted with myself. I don't know who that person...
You're the same guy. You said that earlier guy had options. And so he went for it. Dusty, if the adpocalypse didn't happen and you were still making that money, you'd probably still be living that lifestyle. You're only saying it now because you have no choice. You have limitations.
Person I became was, but it's not me. I didn't want to be that person anymore. And like, honestly, most of those women I went out with, they were just trying to use me. Either they thought...
Dusty, if you have a housewife, she's using you. If a woman's a housewife, there's all kinds of housewives. The man does the work and she doesn't. She's using him. And all kinds of guys love that. They love that shallow relationship. They only care when the relationship ends. That's it. And you're the same way. Your relationship ended. It ended and now you're upset or regretful.
I had money they could use me for, or they thought they could use me to make themselves famous on YouTube, which is completely to be expected because I was being superficial. So how could I not expect them to be superficial too? And yeah, I had a lot of...
Really think there's this in-depth, relationship. I gained this woman. We're really in love now. And now she's getting all popular on YouTube now that she's, on my coattails. Come on, dude.
A lot of fun in Denver, but I was lonely and tired of being rejected by these women, tired of not knowing if they liked me for who I am or not, or if they were just trying to use me until I...
This is the lack of self-awareness I'm talking about. Dude, they messaged you when you became famous. You already knew what they wanted. You already knew it was shallow. Women don't get together with guys for themselves. How do you know that? Because there's all kinds of guys crying in their beer at the bar because they lost their job, then their wife, in that order.
Almost gave up on women completely. But then luckily, I met my current girlfriend. We've been together 4 years now. She's incredibly sweet and incredibly loyal. And I was finally able to get over my...
How can you be sure that she's incredibly loyal? Didn't all of this first wife and all these other women coming on to you, didn't they say that they were loyal? What'd you do? Just tell you she was loyal? Let's face it, you lost all your wealth and then you're becoming a has-been, and then all these women dropped you, and you make enough that a new woman who's can't do any better than you has clamped onto you. That's not loyalty. This is pathetic.
Cringy ass midlife crisis and realized just how important that was and just how important it is.
No, you didn't have a midlife crisis. And it's only important to you now that you don't have options. This is as far as we need to go now with this. The fact is, Dusty, you gained status because you got your foot in the door. You were at the right time or the right place at the right time. It was just luck. And I'm glad you had that lucky break. Very few men do. So, but you're on your way out because, like I said, you talking about this video having 250,000 subs, and now you've got about 230, and it's only going to drop because you know something, Dusty. You got yourself, like I said, your foot in the door when people are tired of the religions, right? They wanted someone to speak out for atheists. But now you're just an ordinary guy talking about ordinary subjects. So your channel is obsolete. It is going to disappear eventually. But anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Thank you, everyone.